Welcome to the TriStar Podcast, where martial arts meets family, faith, and personal growth. Join Professor Brumitt and Professor Beane as they share stories from the mat, lessons from life, and tools to help you and your family live like black belts, on and off the mat. It's time to train the body, sharpen the mind, and strengthen the spirit, right here on the TriStar Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm super excited. We're going to be talking about our character development program. Most people think about martial arts, they think about that's learning how to fight. But at TriStar, really, we're learning how to live with focus, respect, and strength, which is a little bit more than a lot of times what people think about martial arts. And I have to give it to martial arts in general. They have these things in there by default. I'm biased, of course. I think that our system does it a little bit differently because instead of having those things in by accident, we went through and kind of purposely placed these things into our program. So they're not learning these tools, these tips, these tactics of how to be real adult human people outside of the walls of the school on accident, but whether on purpose with design and intent that are involved.
Couldn't agree more. When we first started, there was three pillars, if you will, that we really focused on. One, I always said, was a self-defense piece. That's obvious. We're not trying to turn your kid into the next Rambo or Bruce Lee, but we are going to teach them how to, physically defend themselves. The second pillar, if you will, is the physical fitness. We want to make sure that they are physically fit. We send them back to the gym class, to the ball fields, whatever, being able to, and look, some of the stuff physically is just expected in PE or expected in other sports, but it's never taught. And so we focus in on the fitness. And then the third pillar is the character development. And I've always said, I think that's what parents like best about our program is what you had already brought up, the discipline, respect, doing it the first time, all of those things. And so we've had those as our three main pillars in our program since the beginning. Now, that being said, doesn't mean that we had a structured character development program in the beginning, but over time we definitely did, because I saw a need, to structure it, if you will. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that, but yeah.
Right, and I think that it is. We are kind of segmented out away from the quote unquote traditional martial arts schools in that we have this program. And again, not that these other schools don't have them, because martial arts has these things by default, but the way that ours was designed to not just happen by happenstance, but with intent and purpose, I think is much different than these other things. And the other nicety that we have is because we designed it, we have linked up the word that we focus in on for each of the months to connect with whatever is going on in that month. And I think that is kind of an extra, maybe over the top, but an extra thing that certainly other schools are not doing to any regard, to my knowledge.
Well, this year I've spoke at a lot of grade schools. And the neat thing is they have a word of the month now. And I don't know how long that they've had it. I'm sure it's not just this year, but it was very interesting to see that. So with regards to what we do and the parallel, when I've gone into those, and we may talk about this too. So like, for instance, last year, I think it was April was respect, was our word of the month. And when I went to a school, that was actually one of their, that was their word for that month. And so then I taught them not only, we taught respect, but I taught them our I am statement. I taught them our hand movements with it. And the teachers were like, wow, that's, can we use that in class? I said, absolutely use it in class, because, it's an anchor to get them to remember it. And of course, we can kind of talk about the science behind all that later. But it was just interesting to see that they themselves are doing that. And we've been doing character development for years.
And I think that because we've been doing it for years, it seems so natural and a part of who we are as a team. And having now the affirmations that we have that goes with each of them, I think really connects and solidifies that theme of the month, that character development component to the individuals. And because we're saying that on a repetitious type of way throughout the class and throughout the time the students are there for the month, I think it really connects to them a little bit more than just us sitting down on the mat and talking about this. And I know that there's been parents that have come to you and to me as well that talk about how respect or inspiration or
Courage.
gratitude or courage, whatever that word of the month is, has spilled outside of the walls of the school into their everyday life. And I think that's such a wonderful thing to know that the impact that we have goes beyond just those walls of the studio.
And that's what we want.
Mm.
And let me back up and just for the listeners, because if you're not involved with the studio, what are we talking about? We're talking about our character development program. Every single month, we have a specific word that we are focusing in on. And we actually, we don't repeat those words every single year because we actually have 4 years worth of words. So, and the reason behind that was because and to your point, each month, like let's just say, an easy one to explain is November, because November has Thanksgiving in it. So there's gratitude. There's a bunch of different thankfulness. Like you can do synonyms of the same word or the meanings, if you will. But we have 4 years worth. So it's not repeating the same word over, but it is repeating the same concept for the most part. And so for the listeners that aren't involved with the studio, I just kind of wanted to draw that out so that you understand that, we've got a word that we're focusing on. And then we go from that word, we have what we call an I am statement that is attached to that word. So I'll give you a reference. Last year in April was the word respect. And so the I am statement is, I respect myself and others. But not only is there an I am statement to that, we every single word and I am statement has hand movements or gestures, if you will, that correspond with it. Now I'm trying to remember what the one was for that one specifically, but I forget what it was. But I think it was you put 2 thumbs on your chest and you say, I respect myself. And then they're crossing their arms like this and saying, I respect myself and others. I'm almost positive that was it. But anyways, the reason that that's important is because when we put hand movements to it, to the I am statement, we're helping the child anchor that statement to themselves. And of course, we can get into how effective that is a little bit later with regards to the fact that, especially at those impressionable ages of, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe, not that it doesn't make an impression on, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14-year-olds, even your high schoolers, because it does, but those formative years are crucial.
Mm. Right. And, I think because this program was designed to have the benefit that it does, it brings us into the kind of concept that if we're not allowing the students, or if we're not guiding the students to learn these character traits with purpose and intent, then the world is going to do it for them. And they're going to do it for the parents. They're going to do it for that student. So I think that there is definitely something to be said about the intent and purpose behind the why we're doing this. And I think that even in the time that we've done this and in the new way that we're doing it now, because it's been about a year, give or a little bit over a year since we've actually implemented this new version. Is that right?
Yes.
And
quite honestly, the I am statements only came, I think April. I think April was the first time last year that we introduced the I am statements with the hand gestures to back that up.
Right. So because of this new, and not that we didn't have character development before, because we certainly did, but this new version of it, I think was not that the other one wasn't designed with purpose and intent, but this one is just the next stage, the next process in allowing the students the best opportunity to learn these, to practice these, and again to do it with purpose and intent, with care and love that's designed there as well. So that, again, because otherwise the world's going to do it. And when the world teaches these things to you, oftentimes you get in trouble for them. You're just supposed to already know these things. And if you don't if you're not taught how to do these things, you have to figure it out on your own, failing most of the time, if more often than not anyways, or you get in trouble lots of times because you're not doing the right thing. So hopefully this is the way to do it. And I'm sure in the future there's going to be another, zero point 0.5 version or 2.0 version of this, undoubtedly, because as we learn and grow, we're going to allow our students to learn and grow as well. That's why we have this program that we have. But I think that, again, doing this with purpose and intent like we have, so that it happens from a caring and loving type of way, a nurturing type of way, so the world doesn't come down on the students and do it in a bit harsher way.
I couldn't agree more. And to that point as well, I go back to that third pillar with regards to the character development, because that's what we're talking about. But that's what parents like best about what we do. Because when you have a child that is respectful and hardworking and has grit and discipline, teaching the physical martial arts skills, super easy.
Yeah.
I mean, super easy, right?
Right, because they want to be there, and not only do they want to be there, but they're disciplined, they're respectful, they're ready to listen. They're when you give them feedback, they know it's feedback to help and improve them, not because you're trying to cut them down, because that's certainly not the way that it is. But sometimes if you don't have the right mindset, that's how it's perceived. So what this does is this not only allows them to be that better person outside of the walls, but allows us to be able to reach them and do our job maybe even a little bit easier, because of the way that they behave and respect and act in the classes.
Yeah. And let me also kind of break this down for the listeners too, where, we have that word. And of course, like we said, there's four years worth of words. Each month, to what you said, has a word that kind of represents the theme of what that month is all about in most cases. So last year, we had respect for April. May was courage. October
was bravery. Maybe that was 2 years
October
ago,
was,
but yeah.
Yeah, but and then November was generosity. And so I go through that just because they correspond. And for the listeners, the program that we had before, like you said, was effective, but it wasn't doing everything that we wanted to do. And it was your idea to say, hey, let's just focus on one word a month. And then we broke those words down into also appropriate mat chats at the end of class. And when I say appropriate, meaning, our preschoolers had an appropriate mat chat compared to our beginner students, intermediate, advanced, and also black belts. And that's, we had that kind of before, but it wasn't the same theme as it is now, meaning there wasn't an overarching theme for the month. Everybody just had their own material. And then later on, we added in the I am statements for the affirmations, and then the hand movements that anchored those together, not to mention the character champion stories as well. So every Tuesday and Thursday we email, and we also post in our private Facebook group these character champion stories. And these stories, I mean, they're fictitious, right? But they feature young heroes demonstrating that monthly character trait in real life situations. And so the way that they're designed is they're designed for a parent to be able to read it in, let's say, 60 to 120 seconds, 2 minutes at best to read it. And then there's 5 questions after each story for them to ask their child. And it could be a bedtime thing where they just read it, reinforce it, child goes to bed. However the parents want to do it, we don't tell them how to utilize it. But think about that for a second. We have one word with an I am statement that have hand gestures that are reinforcing those, that are all age appropriate. We're talking about them at the end of class during our mat chats, and we're giving parents tools to reinforce those traits at home. Like how powerful is that?
Right. And I think that, and you said it, but each of the classes have a different level that connects best with them. And I think that that is wildly important for a couple of reasons. Number one, because the students are different ages. So like you have your 3 and 4 year olds, you have the 5 and 6 year olds, you have the 7 and up classes. All of those people, all those students need information that works for them, so they can best interact with that information. And then the other things, the stories that we tell connect with the students that are there. And then on each of, so the other big thing that I think is different too is previously when we had the character development program, it was 1 time per week. So let's say it was on the second day of the week, we would sit down for 5 minutes at the end. We would hit the mat chat, hit the point. Okay, great. Pow, they were gone. And the way that was then, which is 1 time per week, we would do a talk on the first day of the week, but it wouldn't be a character development component. It would just be kind of what's going on, different things that were happening in the school. And then the second day was this. With this one, with this new one that we have now, it's happening across the board on all of the classes every day of the week. And for me, being the type of person that I am, being able to be a little bit more regimented and with it happening every single time, to me really works and is super helpful, because then it doesn't get missed. It doesn't get forgotten about. It's going to be a component of class, whether it's the first day of the week or the second day of the week, it's going to be there. And then the other thing is, it's like 2 or 3 sentences that we talk about, and then there's always a question. It's always a question. And it doesn't matter if they're in the kids program, doesn't matter if they're in the black belt program. It's 2 or 3 sentences that we say, and it's a question. And while that doesn't seem like very much, what it does is it sets up them to start thinking about the question, and then we ask them that question. And then we're quiet. We listen. We get to call on them. We talk about the answers that they have. We have a little bit of a interaction with them. And previously, when we had the other character development component, they had questions. Every once in a while, you would get 1 or 2 kids that would raise their hand and have something to say. What I found now, and you in the school that you're at up in New Lenox there, I'm curious if you found the same thing, that I'm surprised of one, that the number of people that are raising the hand to answer the question, but also sometimes I'm shocked at who those people are, because sometimes you have the kids that are kind of quiet and reserved, but they will raise their hand and proudly declare the answer to that question, or at least how it works with them. And that, I think, is really, really surprising, because otherwise that wasn't happening, at least in my interaction. And how has that been for you?
No, I couldn't agree more. I'm finding the same thing. And what we had before, again, it was excellent. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't provide what this is providing. This provides the consistency. This provides the anchoring from the I am statements to the hand movements. Everybody's learning the same thing. There's an overall theme as well. And, like you said, because it's not as lengthy. You obviously remember some of the mat chats that we had that were a lot longer, but because and it would be only for that one mat chat. So if we were talking about one thing and then it would switch to another idea for the next week, it wasn't consistent. So we're not hitting that thought home. Yeah, I think that and I don't know if you see this or have seen this, but maybe that shy kid didn't answer, the first couple of weeks, but after the second or third, the third or fourth week that we're into that word, and they're much more familiar with it now. I've seen that happen as well, where they start to answer. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I'll give you a yes. And now that we've done this program a little bit more consistently, those kids are more apt to raise their hand across the board. Like after the first, when they're white belts, they're in their trial program, they're just testing the water to see if they like it or not. They're a little bit more apprehensive about raising their hand. Sometimes some kids are just they're ready to answer, which is awesome. But then they kind of get to the feel that oh, it's okay to raise my hand here. It's okay that I have something to say, and they actually like and agree, and we can actually talk about this, which is, at least in my the way I interacted with school, the school that I had when I was a kid, you raise your hand, you didn't always get the best kind of courage to raise your hand and continue raising your hand, especially if you didn't get the right answer, which I don't think happen at all in the classes that we have. So because of that, environment is different. I think that it originally, like when they first get into it, maybe they're a little bit more apprehensive about raising their hand, but after they've now done it for a couple months, a couple belt cycles, they're absolutely more willing to raise their hand and have, I, I hesitate to say conversation, but it's a mini conversation, because they say
Well,
something,
it
we
is.
get to say something in return. It's not them talking or us talking at each other, but we're conversating at least a little bit. And then we go on to the next student, and then we have a little bit of a conversation. And then the cool thing is, because one student will answer in a way, they'll say something, oh yeah, that, and then another student will raise their hand because it connects something for them. And that's kind of a really cool kind of synergistic effect that happens just because it is there, and the students are paying attention, and they're having a conversation with each other.
Yes. And that's where teamwork, relationships, all of that is built. They're demonstrating that, they're more confident now because they're able to have a conversation, not only with you, but also in front of their peers.
Mm.
And they're not getting shot down because it's a wrong answer, because all the questions we asked or asked them, there is no really right answer. I mean, there
Yes.
just isn't. It's whatever their opinion is. So it's set up in a way to give them success, with that answer as well.
Now, I know that you've had an opportunity to meet with a handful of parents that have given you feedback about the change, the impact these things have made. Can you share some of that with the listeners so they can kind of be brought into that?
Yes, two stand out to me specifically. So last year, and this is probably why I've brought it up a couple of times, anyways. But in April was the word respect, and so again we had I respect myself and others, and so we're saying that every class. They're doing it as they're bowing in, bowing out, all those things, and we're coming up to, because April had Easter, and so the Thursday before Easter, I get a message from one of the parents. It was after class. It was probably maybe an hour or so after class, and they messaged us through the app and said, "I just want you to know the impact that the word of the month and the I am statement had on Bryson." And she proceeds to tell me that on the ride home after karate, he said, "Mom, I respect myself and others, so I'm not going to stay up late and capture the Easter bunny, because I want other kids to be able to get presents too." Like, how awesome was that? I was doing a happy dance when I got that, because, his identity was then connected to that. He saw himself as, well, look, if I catch that bunny, then these other kids, they're not going to get a gift. And I want them to be able to get a gift. So I respect them enough that I'm not going to do it. I think that's huge.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is the way, and how old was this student?
He's
Roughly?
5.
5, yeah. The cool thing is how the 5-year-old was able to kind of think about that in the 5-year-old way, and the 5-year-old world, and the things that they're kind of thinking about, and it's top of the mind for them. Yeah. What a amazing story and feedback about that impact that we had on them.
Yeah, and I'll give you another one too. So Nico's mom, this was, when was Courage? Was it in the summer? I'm almost positive it was in the summer.
Might have been like, maybe that was an October one. I think we did Bravery one year in October, and then like the last year I think was Courage, or maybe
Okay.
those were flipped.
May. No, it was
Oh,
May.
May. Okay.
May. Yeah. I'm looking back. I knew I wrote it down here. So May was Courage, and so he's going to. It must have been towards the end of the month, but he went to a pool party, and he knows how to swim, but he was going to the deep end and was afraid to jump into the deep end, and not because he didn't know how to swim, but just you're a little fearful, and Mom couldn't see him. But she saw his lips moving, and she saw the the hand movements, and I forget what they were. And I think it was, I'm courageous even when I'm afraid, I think is what the I am statement was. And I think you do something like where you're doing the muscles, I'm courageous even when I'm afraid, or whatever it was. But she messaged me and she goes, I just got to tell you this, that Nico went to a pool party. He knows how to swim, but he was afraid to jump into the deep end. And I couldn't hear him, but I saw his lips moving and I saw the hand movements and I knew exactly what he was doing. And right after that, he jumped in.
Hmm. And okay, so the cool thing about both of those stories is, one, they're doing it within the way that their mind works, which means that the impact that we're having and the way that the program is designed to reach the students at the age that they're at is working, at least for those students, which is good news for everybody else. The other thing is they are shifting their identity, the way that they see themselves, because of those things, right? Because he wanted to not capture the Easter Bunny so that everybody else could have presents as well. That changed how he thought about that, because otherwise that must have been his thought. And probably because I have small kids, and this is something they talk about in school, is staying up and capturing the Easter Bunny or the leprechaun or the thing. And so he chose to not do that. He changed his thinking of it. And then also to be courageous, and courageous is that's a whole different thing. Being courageous is something that especially a lot of kids, I think nowadays, they don't have as opportunity. They don't have a good relationship, maybe would be the right way to say, with what courageous actually means. And so breaking it down in such a way that it makes sense to them, so they can start to see themselves as somebody who is courageous, and then they can do the action that maybe they would be, fearful to do otherwise. And again, that means that they're the way that they see themselves has changed. So that's a note that these talks are working. That's a note that the age separation and giving the information to them at the age or training level that they're at is working. And then that's also information to know that these affirmations have impact and that they actually do work. And they even, not only do they work for adults, they work for kids, they work all the way across the board. If you can do these affirmations, man, something special happens and you will be much better for it than otherwise.
And it's so much easier to do it when they're young. And the reason that's true is because every 2 to 7, maybe 8-year-old, they believe everything you tell them.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that, the Easter Bunny is real, because he is, right? Kids, he's real, mm-hmm. But they believe everything you tell them. So for instance, I'm not proud of this. I don't know if I said this on this podcast or not, but Keegan, my youngest, is, I would say, allergic to mosquito bites.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about this a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let me just revisit it. He's allergic to mosquito bites. So if he would itch it, it starts to get big. And so he had one on his face. And I just said, hey, look, this is easy. And I'm a horrible dad for doing it, I know. But I said, this is easy. All you got to do is, if you just slap it like really hard, bam, 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 it'll stop. And so my son believes me, takes me literally, smacks himself in the face. I'm dying laughing. Now I'm horrified that I did that. Right. Until this day, I feel so bad. But I bring that up because he believed that. And if you tell your kids that, they're stupid or they can't do something or whatever label you put on them at that young age, if they grab a hold of it, they're more likely to grab a hold of it if they believe you and they trust you. And even some, they know that they shouldn't, like bad parents, they know that they probably shouldn't believe him or trust him, but yet there's this God-given innate, part that they're going to believe and trust you anyways, even though they know they shouldn't. And so then they start to take that identity on. So the identity's formed at an early age. It's moldable. And when we do these repeated affirmations, plus the hand gestures that go along with it, and if we can get, parents to read these stories that we're sending, the kids that are stoking up the mat chats, we're going to create this strong individual from the inside out. And then these I am statements, they become their identity, their blueprint for themselves. It's not, I can be courageous. It is, I am courageous. It's not that I need to have respect. It is, I respect others. Like there's a huge difference between those. So pairing those affirmations and all those other things with the movements creates this multi-sensory, memory that sticks with them.
Well, I think so. I touched on this a little bit earlier, that if we're not teaching these character development pieces with intent and purpose, with full well knowledge of that that these kids hear something before the age of 7 or 8, and they assume that that's fact, and they move on with their life, and that's they do that whether they love and care and respect and look up to these people or not. And that, I think, is the scary part, because if we don't have these opportunities to share these things with kids when they're little, so they can help to form and shape their identity of who they're going to be when they get older in a way that is upward moving and is going to give them the best quality of life that at least that we can think about or conceptualize at this point. If we're not doing that with intent and purpose, then the world is going to do that. And the benefit that we have is the parents that are listening to this, you get to be there. You get to be along the journey with us. But if these things weren't happening, if they weren't happening with intent and purpose, they're going to happen accidentally at school, where mom and dad, you're not there, and you don't know how the teachers are interacting with them, or the other kids are interacting with them, or out wherever else that is that they're going. But here we get to kind of pair up with you, the parents, and do this journey together. And so giving you guys, the parents, those champion character emails, and having those stories for you to talk over with the kids, again, is that way for us to walk in step with each other, to share these things with the students, and to help them benefit and succeed in life, because that's the goal, right? That's the goal. We don't want to. I know my interaction with school. I'm assuming your interaction with school was probably similar to mine, right? Wait, can I guess that, Mr. Brumitt? Your interaction with school was probably not like you weren't necessarily the top of the class and getting all the A's.
I was not the top of the class, so you don't even have to say necessary.
Neither was I. And so what that means is school at least taught me that, hey, I'm not as good as some of these other kids. I don't excel in these type of areas. And now as an adult, I can look back at that and see that was happening, and have an opportunity to reshape and restructure the way that I see myself now, removed from that. And I can see that the way that happened did not benefit me, was not there for my benefit. It was not there to allow me to succeed later in life. I got to where I am because of who I am, even though those things happen. But if I had a program like this, because we did not have something like this when I was younger, not to mention I didn't start karate until I was 11 anyways, but if we had something like this where I could have went through this as a kid before I was 6 or 7, where I got to hear these things and shift the way that I think about myself into a proper and uplifting and a beneficial way, it would have been tremendous. So if we can do that, again, along with the listeners, the parents who are listening to this, if we can walk in step to help to shape and mold that small human that you have, and we get to interact with into the best version of themselves as they get older, because those things, that framework happens now when they're young. All of those things happen now when they're young. If we can do that together, it's so much more beneficial, because, while we do teach kids to break boards, we don't just teach kids to break boards. We teach them how to build character and how to become that person who they will inevitably become.
Yeah, because how many boards are going to attack you?
Yes, boards, as a Bruce Lee, boards don't hit back.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and we can't be in the parents' house. It takes a village. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you the tools. I've said this to parents: you're already paying the money, so like you might as well utilize everything that we're giving to the best of your ability. Whether it looks, look, I understand some of it is work. Well, a lot of it is, okay, but you will look back at your life and go, man, I wish I'm not saying regret. I will say you will look back and go, man, I wish that they were that age again.
Mm.
even though it is um, messy. And, I mean, you got three of them, right?
Mhm.
So it is messy right now, but I'm on the other side of it going, man, I would trade, dude. I'd go back. And now knowing what I know, I would embrace the messy so much differently. In fact, Tuesday night I had a conversation with one of the parents, um, and his child has ADD. I mean, off the chart ADD. And he said to me, he goes, I, I, I don't know how you do it. He said, I want to yell from the side. And I said, well, first off, thank you for not doing that. I said, secondly, I go, I don't live with you with your son. So I only have him for the X amount of time that he's out on the floor, a couple of two, 3 times a week. I go, so there is that. But the other thing I have is a different perspective. Now knowing what I know and raising, having 3 kids, like I would do things differently. Not that I felt like I was a horrible or bad parent, but I would enjoy. And I said, look, your son's never disrespectful. He's never, he's never not listening, even though it looks like he's not listening. Because when I say, hey, so and so, because I don't want to put his name out on this, but if I said, hey, so and so, what did I just say? He can fire it right back. And you know me, if somebody was trying to call me right now and I'm trying to talk to you, like that would make this horrible because I can't focus like that. But somebody with ADD, especially with him, he can do it. And so I see that as a superpower because I certainly can't do it. But I'm bringing that up because as a parent, enjoy where you're at, enjoy the messy right now. Allow us to enter your home, utilize the tools that we have to help shape and mold your child, no matter what age they are. I know we're talking primarily like the 3 to 7 to 8-year-olds are those malleable ages, which they are. But it's not to say that we can't have, an impact with them. Because here's what we have compared to any other sport or any school. We don't do one-room schoolhouses anymore. So you don't have a teacher that has a kid from kindergarten all the way to graduation. But you do have that with us. We have a kid from kindergarten to graduation, meaning black belt or second degree or third degree or whenever they graduate out of the program, meaning they leave. And what we have is we can play the long game. And unfortunately, schools don't have that. Other sports don't necessarily have that. Even when you go on to travel sports, you're only on, that travel team for a certain period of time. And then you're aged out and you move up to a different travel team because of your age. And so you don't even have the same coaches at those times. See, we've got something really, really special because we can actually play the long game and we can come alongside you for all of it.
And I think that is yet another thing that separates us from conventional sports. And I know me and you have talked about this before. We get the call and say, hey, when's the next season starting? Because everybody just thinks of it
or
like
session.
That. Or the next session.
Yeah.
Yes. It doesn't work that way. We are there for the long haul. We're there for as long as you're willing to allow us to be there. And if we can walk in step with each other, and like you said, we have this program. And we don't have to have this program. I think the karate program that we have is stands on its own, and it's great in its own regard. This is just an extra thing that is there because we know the impact that it can have. We know the importance of this, and we've done our best to design this in such a way that it happens with intent and purpose. And it's so easy to see on, in the classes on the mat when the kids are standing, they're standing taller. We can see that. We can see that difference, especially, even sometimes from white belt to yellow belt, we see that happens. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, yes, but we can see and think back from where that student was when they started to where they are at given moment in the program. They speak clearer. They're able to look at us. And that's something we do all the time anyways. And parents, I hope that you see this when we're in classes, whether they're with a student or they're with another instructor. At the end, we have them bow. They shake hands. When they shake hands, they're shaking a hand. If they're with an instructor, we're at least doing our best to try to get them to shake a hand proper, because that's not something that's taught anymore, but shake a hand proper, to look us in the eyes. And that's sometimes really challenging for kids, especially now, more so now than it has been in the past, for sure. But and so they stand taller, they speak clearer, and they start to believe in themselves. And that's all because of these I am statements and this character development program that we've designed. And we're already, again, it's been a little bit over a year. I think that we've, or no, what, it's almost a year, right?
Yeah.
Almost a year. It hasn't even been a year. It hasn't even been one full cycle yet, let alone the full cycle, which is 4 years. We've already seen the benefit that this is produced. And in that small time, we've already made we made considerations to make this even more impactful. We've added the I am statements. We added the hand motions that go with that I am statement. All of those make this so much more impactful. And
yep, and the character champion stories too.
Yes, right. And to have that opportunity for the parents to step alongside us and to share these things and just have a conversation with these at home. So the cool thing about this is that does two things. One is it has an open dialogue with you and your kid, which is immensely beneficial. But on top of that, you have an open dialogue with your kid about the topics that we're talking about in class. So it's that connection piece that we talked about. Was it last week when you were interviewing me, that my parents had with me as I was going through the program? We're allowing you to have a little bit of that connection piece to connect what we're doing in the school with what you're doing at home. And confidence is one of those things that I think is a byproduct of doing this program. And confidence, it happens as you're going through the belts, but confidence doesn't come from the belts. It comes from the belief, and the belief is there because of the character. And that's the character development that we've developed to improve that confidence for the students.
Yeah. Look, you're talking right up my alley. So I can't, I totally agree. It sounds like I'm agreeing with everything you said, but it's true. And so parents, make sure that you ask your kid about the word of the month, spin it, use it. I'll give you, for instance, what was it? I think September was hard work. And the reason that September was hard work was because everybody's back to school. And it's hard work to get focused back. I mean, that's why, what is it? It takes 6 to 8 weeks for teachers to get the kids back into the swing of things or whatever it is. But I can remember in class, this one kid, we were doing exercises at the beginning of class, and he was doing the sit-ups, and it has a hard time with it. And I said, hey, to his name, I said, hey, name, are you a hard worker? Yes, sir, I am a hard worker. And that was the I am statement. I am a hard worker. Like, and it was just, and I guarantee you, man, he was busting butt after he said that statement. Even though he was still having a tough time, he was doing it. So ask your child about the word of the month, repeat the affirmations together. Heck, do the hand movements. That kinesthetic anchoring works. And by the way, it doesn't just work for kids, it works for adults too. So you're going to start believing it when you say it with your kids as well. And utilize those statements. And that's why we kind of tried to pair them up with what the overall theme of whatever month is, because most months have a theme anyways to the, most of them do. So utilize it. And then, celebrate when you see them, executing that word. When you see them being respectful, and if the word of the month was respect, all you have to do is say, man, I love how you showed respect to your instructors when you bowed at the end, or when you shook their hand, or especially during the respect month, the kids that I saw holding the door open for their parent, I said, man, I love how you show your parent respect by opening or holding the door for them. And then the ones that didn't do that heard me. And by all means, when they were leaving, I can't say all of them because I wasn't paying attention, but I know a few of them were holding the door open for their parent, Now, hopefully the parent saw that, connected it, because behavior that's rewarded will be repeated. Let me say that again. Behavior that's rewarded will be repeated. And so when you connect the word of the month to your child's behavior, and you reward them by not by giving them a gift, but you reward them by noticing it. Notice the effort, not the perfection. And when you do that, you're going to start to see that same word that reflect in their effort more and more and more. And then obviously read those character champion stories together and discuss the questions.
Right. I think that as the parents, as you see these things happening in the students, in the kids, and then you are able to underline that for them, that opportunity to just say, hey, that was awesome. You did such a good job there. That's going to make the transformation for all of these things happen just like lightning speed, because they're going to see that these things are working. The student, I say students because the students us, but the kids will feel good for the attention that they're getting, and they like that. So they're going to do more of that. And the best part about that is they're going to be moving in that path that's going to get them to be maybe a little bit better than where they are now. Now, that's not to say that we're trying to make anybody perfect, because that's hard to do. But if you, the parents, it's impossible to do. Yeah. If you, the parents, can kind of step alongside us and underline those things and connect the karate school with what's going on at home, or even talk about it in the car ride in the car on the ride home, it's just going to supercharge that transformation. It's going to happen so fast then.
And here's why this is important. Your child is going to have to protect themselves mentally, emotionally, socially, well more than they're going to have to protect themselves physically. Now, God forbid they have to defend themselves physically. Yes, we're going to teach them how to do that. But moreover, we want them to be able to defend themselves mentally, emotionally, and socially. And the way that we do that is we teach them how to become the individuals that we know that they were designed to be. You know, like the month of respect, I was talking to some parents, and I said, one of them had mentioned something to their kid about respect, and then I said, look, I love that you are, talking about respect to your child. I said, but can I give you, a piece of advice that I've learned? And she said, yeah. I said, yes, we want our kids to be respectful because they know how to be respectful, not because we're telling them they have to be respectful, because they want to be respectful. And I said, the reason that's so important is because we need them to learn how to do these things and then do them on their own, so they're self-sufficient. Because at some point, what you don't want to have happen is you don't want your kid to be disciplined and respectful and obey just because they're supposed to be disciplined, respectful, and obey. Because all they're going to do is, once they get to a certain age, is they're going to take their umbilical cord from you and plug it into somebody else. And that may not be the person that you want them to get their information from. And so what we need to do is we need to teach them how they don't need the umbilical cord anymore. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and I think the other part of that is if the control is so much when they're at home, they're bouncing up against this bubble. As soon as that bubble is gone, they go to college or move out to do the next part of their life, they're going to jump out in all kinds of different directions, because then they can, and they don't know, they don't have that self-imposed limit, right? Because you always put the parent always put the limit there. And I think that the umbilical cord is another way to say that same kind of thing. And I know I have seen that happen enough times to know that is something that is, as a parent, you have to be cautious for. Yeah.
Well, so I just challenge the families to, whatever word of the month that we're talking about, utilize it, talk about it, live it out, use our I am statements and say it together with your kids, with the other kids that are in, even if they're not in the program. Make it a family, affair, and utilize it to the best of your ability, because I really know that it's going to make a huge difference in your child's life.
And not only do we know that it will, we already know that it has, because we have the feedback. And that's less than a year of the impact that this new program has had. So the looking down the path of what the next 4 years for the whole program to become full cycle is tremendous, to see the potential that is there, and to know that the impact is going to be so impactful for the students and for their families.
And reach out, let us know. So when you have those moments, because what's been nice is the parents that have reached out, I've been able to reinforce it with their child and go, man, I heard this.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you having courage, or I love to hear that you are respectful, or or like with regards to Bryson, I said to him, I go, I knew that you were respectful, but now you demonstrated it.
Yes. Hey, Mr. Rama, I'm excited to, as excited as I was for this one, I'm excited for the next one, for next week's episode, because I know we're going to talk about why students come to do martial arts, why they want to start martial arts, and then the kind of counterpiece to that is why they stay. And sometimes,
Yeah.
though, when we'll talk about it there, but I think that the reason they start training sometimes is different than the way that the reason they continue training. So I'm excited to kind of to dish that out next week.
Yeah. So for those of you that are at the studio, stay tuned for that next episode. I will tell you, please share this podcast with, even if your kid doesn't even go to TriStar, somebody that doesn't go to TriStar, please share this podcast with them, and because there's a lot of really good information that they can take and just utilize themselves.
Thanks for joining the TriStar podcast, where black belts begin at home. Connect with our community by visiting tristarkarate.com. Follow us on social media and share this episode with a family who's ready to grow stronger together. Until next time, stay focused, stay faithful, and keep training like a champion.